Nobody tells you this about the very first black people in America. The story most of us were taught, that black history in what became the United States began with enslaved Africans arriving in chains at Jamestown, Virginia in 1619, is only part of a much deeper, more complex truth. What if the presence of black individuals on this land started over a full century earlier, not in bondage, but often as free men, explorers, warriors, and survivors who helped shape the European conquest of the New World? This almost rewrote the entire narrative of who discovered America and how the continent was mapped, settled, and claimed, long before English colonies even dreamed of existence. The 1619 arrival, while pivotal for the brutal institution of chattel slavery in English America, was far from the beginning of the black experience here. The problem Europeans faced in the early 1500s was immense and deadly. Spain, Portugal, and other powers were locked in a frantic race to claim, explore, and exploit the vast unknown territories across the Atlantic. Expeditions launched into uncharted lands filled with dense jungles, scorching deserts, raging rivers, unfamiliar diseases, fierce resistance from indigenous nations, and the constant risk of starvation, shipwreck, or mutiny. Crews were small, supplies limited, and knowledge of the terrain non-existent. Without skilled guides, interpreters, scouts, healers, or additional fighters, many voyages ended in total disaster. Entire parties vanished, leaving only rumors and bones. The Spanish crown desperately needed every capable hand regardless of origin. This created a dangerous moment where Africans, some enslaved, some free after gaining manumission in Europe, were pulled into these high-stakes adventures. Many had been captured in Africa, sold through Portuguese or Spanish traders, transported to Iberia, and then onward to the Americas. Their expertise in survival, languages, and combat often proved the difference between success and oblivion, yet their contributions were frequently erased or minimized in official records dominated by European names. But what most people don't know, the twist that shatters the simplified 1619 myth, is that the first documented black person to set foot on the mainland of what is now the United States was not an enslaved captive from 1619, but a free black conquistador named Juan Garrido. Born around 1480 in the Kingdom of Kongo, in present-day northern Angola and parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Gabon, and Congo, Garrido was likely sold into slavery as a young man and taken to Lisbon, Portugal around 1495. There, he somehow secured his freedom, possibly through manumission, conversion to Christianity, or service, and adopted the Spanish name Juan Garrido, Handsome John. By the early 1500s, he'd moved to Seville and joined Spanish expeditions crossing the Atlantic. He arrived in the Americas as early as 1502 or 1503, settling first in Santo Domingo on Hispaniola. Garrido fought as a soldier in Juan Ponce de León's conquest of Puerto Rico in 1508, served in Diego Velázquez's takeover of Cuba around 1511, and participated in raids across other Caribbean islands like Guadalupe and Dominica. Then, in 1513, he joined Ponce de León's famous expedition in search of the mythical Fountain of Youth. Sailing from Puerto Rico with about 200 men on 3 ships, they landed on the east coast of Florida, near present-day St. Augustine, on April 2, 1513, claiming the land for Spain and naming it La Flaida for its lush, flowery appearance. Garrido stepped ashore as part of this group, making him the first known free African on the North American mainland. Far from a passive participant, he was an armed warrior who helped battle indigenous Calusa and other groups who resisted the intruders fiercely. The expedition found no gold or fountain, but gathered knowledge of the land before retreating due to attacks and shortages. Garrido's story didn't end in Florida. He continued serving the Spanish crown for over 30 years, joining Hernán Cortés in the brutal conquest of the Aztec Empire in 1519, where he fought in the siege of Tenochtitlan, modern Mexico City. For his loyalty and valor, Cortés granted him land in the new colony of New Spain. Garrido became a farmer, the first to successfully plant and harvest wheat in the Americas, experimenting at his own expense, and even petitioned the king in 1538 with a probanza de merito, a detailed testimony of his service, requesting recognition and rewards. He described enduring hunger, privation, and danger across multiple campaigns, always paying his own way without salary. He married, had children, and lived in Mexico City until his death around 1550. His life shows a black man navigating freedom amid emerging colonial systems, contributing to European expansion while carving out a degree of autonomy. Even more dramatic is the saga of Estevanico, also known as Esteban the Moor, Estevanico, or Mustafa al-Azemuri. Born around 1500 in Azemur, Morocco, he was captured young, sold into slavery by Portuguese traders, and ended up in the service of Spanish nobleman Andrés Dorantes de Carranza. In 1527-28, Estevanico joined Panfilo de Narváez's grand expedition to conquer and colonize La Florida. With about 600 men on 5 ships, they landed near Tampa Bay in April 1528. Narváez split the force. He marched inland with 300 men, including Estevanico, seeking gold at Apalache, while ships explored the coast. Disaster struck. Hostile encounters, disease, and swamps decimated the group. Narváez ordered makeshift barges built from horsehide and timber. They set sail west along the Gulf in September. Storms wrecked them near Galveston Island, Texas. Of hundreds, only 4 survived: Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, Alonso del Castillo Maldonado, Andrés Dorantes, and Estevanico. For 8 grueling years, 1528 to 1536, these men trekked thousands of miles across Texas, northern Mexico, and the Southwest as the first non-natives to traverse much of the interior. Estevanico, with his dark skin and foreign appearance, often served as scout, interpreter, and healer. Native peoples viewed him with awe, some as a powerful medicine man or spiritual figure, allowing the group to barter, gain food, and safe passage through diverse tribes. They walked an estimated 15,000 miles, learning languages, customs, and geography no European had seen before. Reaching Spanish settlements near Culiacan in 1536, their reports of northern golden cities, Cibola, sparked legends that inspired later quests. Estevanico's skills made him invaluable again. In 1539, Viceroy Antonio de Mendoza sent him ahead with Franciscan friar Marcos de Niza to scout rumored riches. Estevanico traveled north into present-day Arizona and New Mexico, contacting Zuni pueblos, the first non-native to reach them. Dressed in bells and feathers to impress locals, he sent back increasingly large crosses signaling major discoveries. But near Hawiku, Zuni village thought to be Cibola, tensions boiled over. Accounts vary. Some say he was killed by arrows after demanding entry and tribute. Others speculate he may have sought freedom by vanishing into indigenous communities. His death in 1539 marked the end of his epic journey, but his explorations paved the way for Francisco Vázquez Coronado's 1540 expedition. These early Africans proved indispensable. Their knowledge helped Europeans survive and expand, yet it also accelerated the transatlantic slave trade's horrors as demand for labor grew. By 1526, enslaved Africans were part of failed Spanish settlements in what became South Carolina and Georgia. When the 20-and-odd Africans, captives from a Portuguese ship taken by English privateers, arrived in Virginia in 1619, they entered a world already touched by black presence for over a century before. Those 1619 arrivals symbolized the brutal shift to hereditary, race-based chattel slavery in English America, but the real first chapters were written by men like Garrido and Estevanico, pioneers, not just victims. History teaches us that the black presence in America began with exploration, resilience, agency, and forgotten freedom, not solely with chains. This proves that overlooked individuals can alter the course of continents, and that narratives of arrival must include the full spectrum of experiences. That's why we must challenge simplified textbooks and seek the deeper truths. The land was shaped by diverse hands long before the myths solidified. The real story isn't just about survival under oppression, it's about courage, adaptation, and the hidden architects of history who walked this soil first. Understanding this changes how we see America's origins forever.